Okay, so I'm just gonna read some parts of a fairy tale that's in the book The Starless Sea, just because I think it's kind of wacky and I'm kind of drunk right now, so I think I would have fun reading it and making a little video. The way this fairy tale starts out is, once very long ago, time fell in love with fate. And okay, I'm intrigued. Let's see what happens to them. And this, as you might imagine, proved problematic. You know, I'm actually kind of on the side of time and fate here because I feel like since they're both personified concepts, they probably have a lot in common. Their romance disrupted the flow of time. It tangled the strings of fortune into knots. Fortune is not personified in this. I mean, fate and time are, so I'm not sure why it's strings of fortune rather than strings of fate. I'm assuming the strings of fortune are something like the red thread that is supposed to tie together people who are soulmates in some Eastern mythologies, but it's never really explained in the book, so I'm just kind of bringing that into it. You might be wondering what kind of things go wrong when the flow of time is disrupted and the strings of fortune are tangled, but I don't think we actually get any examples. No, we don't. like what is that actually? What actually is going wrong is like water flowing uphill, or like are things actually happening in reverse because time and fate are slacking off in their duties. I feel like that's where you kind of need an example, because the story starts out very abstract, and the stars watched from heaven nervously, worrying what might occur. Wait, I thought stuff was already going wrong. Yeah, I guess the stars are worried that it might get worse. What might happen to the days and nights were time to suffer a broken heart? What catastrophes might result of the same fate awaited fate itself? I almost said herself because we do learn later that fate is a lady, but she's not really given a gender in this story, I guess. And like I'm as worried as the stars, because I don't know. Like, I don't know what exactly happens if fate and time get a broken heart. I mean, what if they just eat some chocolate or some ice cream and watch Netflix for a night and then get back to doing what they're supposed to be doing? Maybe it won't be so bad. Maybe a broken heart is something they just deal with and then get back to their jobs like normal people. I'm also not sure why it's the stars specifically. I think it's just because it sounds nice. I feel like everything would probably have a stake in this, because basically any part of the physical world is going to be in jeopardy if time starts flowing backwards or something weird like that. Or it's never really explained what fate does, but I'm guessing it's important too. But this story is going to go with the stars. The stars conspired and separated the two. I'm not sure how. They just do it. Everything's okay for a bit. Time continued to flow as it always had, or perhaps imperceptibly slow. I mean, make up your mind. Like, the narrator doesn't know if time is affected or not affected, or if it's affected in some way that is imperceptible. But if it's imperceptible, that's exactly the same as it not being affected at all. Fate, still weaving together paths that are meant to intertwine, and perhaps a string was missed here or there. Okay, At least it's not an imperceptible string. But eventually, fate and time found each other again. At this point, I realized it wasn't clear whether the stars broke up fate and time by just like picking them both up and dumping like one of them on one side of the globe and one of them on the other side of the globe, or if it was more of a like they tell fate, hey, don't tell anyone, but I heard Time was sleeping with your sister and he's actually a jerk and you shouldn't go out with him anymore. But I'm thinking it's more the first one where they just separate them spatially somehow, and I'm not even going to question how they're separated spatially and they don't have the freedom to go see each other, but they're still able to do their jobs just fine. That's pretty par for the course in these kind of stories. Stars are not happy that fate and time are back together, and maybe they're going to break each other's hearts and slack off. They ask the moon for her advice. You know, stars talking to the moon, I'm not going to question that because that's pretty standard. The moon in turn called upon the Parliament of Owls, not a Parliament of Owls, the Parliament of Owls. This is the first in the book that we've heard about the owls. Okay, I mean, it's a reference to the silver chair, which is a reference to something else, but at least owls come out at night, so I guess it's not the weirdest bird for the moon to be talking to, although aside from it being the pun, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's at night, blah blah. The Parliament of Owls came to the logical conclusion that if the problem was in the combination, one of the elements should be removed. So they're worried that either time or fate is going to slack off on their duties. Either one of those outcomes is bad. So they're going to just off one of them. And to prevent them from getting a broken heart. But I feel like if time and fate are going to be messed up by a breakup, then they're going to be at least more messed up, at least as messed up by one of them dying, and the one who's dead is obviously not going to be able to do whatever they're supposed to be. Why? This is the stupidest solution ever. It's like worrying that your parents are going to get divorced, so you just murder one of them. Resuming this video because my alarm went off. The Parliament of Owls make a decision of which one to keep, and they tell the stars, and the stars are fine with their decision. It actually was the moon who talked to the owls. It wasn't the stars. The moon did not agree with the owl's decision, but this night she was dark and could not offer her opinion. I'm not sure if the moon ever got told that they made a decision or not, but she's dark because that's the thing that moons do. Okay. They decide to murder Fate. So they murder her, and no one dared intervene. I'm not sure why. I mean, they're just owls. I mean, they're just owls. Like, what's so scary about owls? Even if they are smart enough to have a parliament. But one mouse does kind of sneak in and steal Fate's heart and keeps it safe. Again, I'm not going to question that there's a mouse in this story because at least mice and owls kind of go together. It creeps through the blood and bone and feathers and takes Fate's heart. So I'm not sure if we're supposed to think that the owls tore each other apart as they were murdering Fate. Um, and that's why there's bone and feathers lying around, or if Fate herself in this story is a bird. Spoilers, she's not a bird in the rest of the story, she's a human. But maybe the owls are just they're just like they're especially incompetent, and they murdered each other. Whether I think the story makes no sense. So Fate is gone, her heart's saved, but that's about all we know about her. The owl who consumed Fate's eyes gained great sight. Better than any immortal creature I'd ever had before. And the Parliament crowned him the Owl King. I guess it's not weird for them to have a Parliament and a king, but I'm not sure if they just made that up because they're like, you have superpowers. We're just gonna give you a title now, or if that's something they had before. But anyway, now in addition, there's an Owl King, and I don't really care about him because I thought Fate and Time were the main characters in the story, and you know, this owl was complicit in Fate's murder, and he does not deserve to be king, and I don't care if he gets some nice stuff from that, and I don't care if he has good sight superpowers. He's a jerk. In the heavens, the stars sparkled with relief. Fuck you, stars. But the moon was full of sorrow. I guess she undarked, as the moon does, and she figured out that the stars and the owls were up to some murder. And she's like pretty bummed about that. But the moon is not going to show up again because the story's almost done, so I guess she just has a sad. So time is just going on as it normally does. I guess time got over the murder of his girlfriend pretty quickly. It's a good thing they didn't break up. I guess breaking up would have just messed him up, but her getting murdered by owls it's just like whatevs. Events that were once fated to happen are instead left to chance, and chance never falls in love with anything for long. So I guess I'm not as mad at the owls now, knowing that there was something to step in for Fate, because it seems like chance is not doing a bad job. I don't know what the difference is between Fate and chance, but at least it seems like chance is kind of an equivalent for Fate, and also chance is asexual and is not going to get a broken heart. So unless there was like another similar thing to step in for time, I'm not mad about the owl's decision as much as I was before. I think the whole murder was kind of extreme and counterproductive, but if they had to choose one, choosing Fate was probably the way to go. And now Chance is also a personified character in this story, even though they never showed up before, and they also never show up in the rest of this book. The world is strange, and endings aren't truly endings, no matter how much the stars might wish it so. And occasionally Fate can pull itself together again. So, I mean, there we go. And that is the end of the story. And I almost forgot, but it was also kind of weird that the stars broke up Fate and Time, and then Fate and Time just got back together again. And then the stars were like, oops, that didn't work. Better get the owls to do some murder. Some murder for our behalf. I'm not sure why that was left in the story, because it just puts them back in the same place they were before. I'm not sure why the story has the stars tried one thing and it didn't work, and then they tried this other thing and it worked. it's not even the rule of 3 because it's just 2 attempts and the second one works. Whereas at least if there were 3, that's kind of a pattern that's common to these stories. So yeah, I'm not sure why the stars trying to break them up was in there, except to make the stars more sympathetic, that they didn't like automatically go to murder. I mean, it's clearly a version of the cowherder boy and the weaver girl story, but I feel like that one has a pretty clear moral of romantic love not being more important than society as a whole, that societal love and being part of a community and doing your job takes precedent over being in love with someone, even though that's kind of sad. But I kind of also get that point of view, but I'm not sure what this story is about. It's so random and I just wanted to read it. There you go. There is this strange story from the Starless Sea, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and it basically just introduced that fate and time are an item in this book, but in kind of a strange roundabout way. And the context for the story is really weird too, because the main character someone just kind of pulls him into a dark room and starts telling him the story while also kind of touching him and pushing him around without ever asking him if he's okay with that. Just in case you want some context to make it weirder, that's what's going on. So anyway, that was a story from the Starless Sea, and thanks for listening.